Well, hello, hello. It is time for Training Tuesday. This is Natalie Hahn. I am CEO of Dirty Girls Consulting, and tonight's Training Tuesday is brought to you from the scenic state of Arizona. And I had to close the curtains behind me because it's still bright outside and it was backlit and the lighting was troublesome. So I am talking to you guys from my lovely hotel room in Arizona. As you all know, I'm traveling, so I have been traveling for the last week and a half now in different places, and I'm here for the holidays with my family in outside of Phoenix. So today's topic is one that I think is a little bit tough because we don't always like to acknowledge that for some of us the holidays are not so easy, not so joyful. And one of the things I think we feel bad about saying is when we're not really into the whole gratitude practice, right? November is the month of the gratitude platitudes, right? This is where we are being told that we have to be grateful and we should be grateful every day, and every day write something down or write down 50 things or 3 things and keep a journal. And I understand the practice because it has merit. There's a reason for this practice. There's a reason it has value. And I'm not against it. Not against it. I just understand that at this time of year, for some of us, it can be a little harder than others to muster up 30 days of gratitude. It can be hard to muster up the 10 days or the 5 days, depending on which kind of challenge you're in. And so I have a handful of friends who are in these challenges, and so every day in my Facebook feed pops up the today I'm grateful for this, and this is day 12, and today I'm grateful for this, and I think, wow. I probably when I get to day 5 or 6, I feel like I'm scraping. I feel like I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel for gratitude. And it's not that I'm not grateful, and it's not that there's not a bunch of things to be grateful for, as much as it's that once I kind of get past the big ones of, let's see, of kids, family, health, roof over my head, dog, love my dog. Yeah, then then I kind of feel like I'm scraping. I'm scraping for and it's not that there aren't a zillion things to be grateful for, but I do think one of the things we should recognize is that the gratitude practice, especially when it's asking you to list something every day for 10 days, 30 days, yes, there should be gratitude. Like I myself, a couple times this week, right, have tried sending you guys videos of the Arizona sunrises. They're gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Um, Am I grateful for the sunrise? Sure. It's really more of an appreciation. And that appreciation of things raises my awareness of those things. And when my awareness of good things and beautiful things in life is raised, then my general joy and happiness in life is also raised, right? We increase our emotional kind of well-being and our emotional barometer with what we bring awareness to and what we recognize. So part of that whole gratitude practice is really just about raising your awareness for the things that are good in life. Even if the good thing in life by day 29 of a 30-day challenge is look at the pretty green leaf. Isn't it green? Isn't it pretty? Right? We scrape. We scrape a little bit. For those of you, for those of us who get through the holidays sometimes, and it can be rough, there can be rough patches through the holidays, that can feel disingenuous. That kind of practice feels like we're forcing ourselves and that it's not in alignment with who we are. It's disingenuous. And sometimes that feeling of not being aligned right either makes us feel bad or guilty for having negative feelings during a time when we're supposed to be grateful, or causes resentment a little bit. Like, why are you forcing me to scrape for these beautiful, so-called wonderful things when, in fact, I'm not feeling it? And I don't want to feel bad for not feeling it. So that's what I want to talk about tonight. If you're joining me live, say hello in the chat. If you're joining on the replay, say hello there too. I know that it's before the holidays and we're all busy and we're all cramming in time. And trust me, my meetings this week, yesterday and today, were back to back, just constant because we're all trying to cram in before we take time off. 'Tis the American way. And given I've talked so much this month about work-life balance, and I will continue to talk about work-life balance, right? We have these days where whether it's balanced or not, what I'm balancing out is I'm going to do more work now because I'm going to balance out the fact that in a few days I'm going to be checked out and I'm going to be fully focused on spending time with my family because they're here. So, hey, Jackie, it's good to see you. I'm glad you're joining us tonight. So, while some people feel excitement, right? The topic tonight is gratitude platitudes and kind of alternate ways of dealing with some of this stuff, right? While some people feel excited and happy, and I do, I actually love the holidays, but they're tough for me sometimes. There can be an underlying sense or an overlaying sense of stress, of anxiety, of anger, of resentment, and it can be tied to, I don't know, financial strain. This is a very expensive time of year. And between paying, for example, for travel or gifts or just the extra eating out because people expect you to go to holiday dinners and holiday parties, or maybe there's a secret Santa thing going on or that's going to be kicking off soon. I saw something in one of my emails about a secret Santa, and I got to tell you, I have an unnatural amount of stress around secret Santa, and I don't even know why. I don't know why, but I just have this underlying gremlin that says either my gift isn't going to be good enough for the dollar value they set on it, or just going to get a piece of junk, and then what am I going to do with that? And it just causes a little bit of internal strife for me when there's a secret Santa thing going on. It's not rational. I'm not claiming that, just saying it's a thing. So financial strain can be one reason why we feel out of sorts during the season. This idea of hosting parties and hosting meals, right? How many of you are hosting this year? How much stress is the cooking, the cleaning, and the having family members in your house causing you this year? I'm not at my house hosting. I'm at my mother's. I'll do part of the cooking. But the stress is really on her. Her house. She's trying to figure out how to fit us all around the table. We're trying to figure out, we've got those relatives who occasionally pop out inappropriate things, things like that, like stress. We see family members that maybe we don't particularly want to see, or we try to limit seeing a couple times a year. That bring added, right, anxiety to the moment, that we wonder what they're going to say or what they are going to do and how that's going to impact, or are they going to judge, right? Isn't family time a great time for people to ask you, when you're getting married, when you're having babies, are you getting a new job? For me, are you dating anybody? Why not? Or why? Sometimes it's why. Just questions about your life that make you question, am I doing the right thing? Am I living my life wrong? I have to answer these questions and they're all judging me for it, right? So there's a whole lot of just anxiety that comes with that. There's political discourse with friends and family, especially this time of year. Just have elections in November. January, especially if it's a presidential election, is when the offices turn. If you have family members on opposite sides of the political spectrum, which I do, the idea even that somebody might bring up politics becomes stressful. So pressure of seeing your family, pressure around social functions, financial pressure, old resentments brought, right? All year long, I haven't seen somebody. So that old fight we had years ago has not come to surface. I thought I dealt with it, and then boom, I'm back in their circle again because it's a friend circle or a family circle, and all those old negative feelings come back up. Happens around the holidays. That's when we see people we don't see very often. And there's grief. There's things that have happened during the holidays that are traumatic, that are sad, that the time of year, especially if it's an anniversary of a date, brings around. And stress leads to anger, it leads to resentment, it leads to frustration. And these negative energies, when they're not managed, lead to outbursts, arguments, leads to outcomes and events that we didn't plan and we didn't necessarily want to have happen. So I will share my story. I think a lot of you know my story, but I'm going to share it anyway just to give context to this and why I feel like this is important for us to talk about. Because the pressure we feel for sweeping the negative energy, right, the negative emotions under the rug during this time of year to make everybody else comfortable is not healthy. It's not healthy. Because any negative emotions, whether it's stress, whether it's anxiety, whether it's fear, grief, sorrow, resentment, anger, they're normal and they're natural emotions. And anytime we are suppressing them rather than working through them is not healthy. Now, are there appropriate and inappropriate times and ways to work through it? Sure, sure. That's part of managing our emotions. That's part of it. So for me, one of the reasons why I struggle during the holidays and my family struggles during the holidays is that back in 2012, so 10 years ago this year, back in May of 2012, I got a call from my mother that my brother, I have an older brother, was diagnosed with colon cancer, and he was already in stage 4. It was 6 months later, on November 20th, that my brother passed away. So I had been on my way to see him with the family. When between May and November, I was living in Florida. I had been back to Arizona multiple times to visit my brother, who had moved in with my parents during his treatments and everything, and he lived with them, and they were his caretakers during this period of time. So I had come back multiple times. My kids, obviously 10 years ago, were much younger, so I was literally on the road with the kids to come see him when he passed away. So I missed it. I missed him. So that was 10 years ago. 4 years ago, for those of you who know the Dirty Girls story, you know that 10 years ago, actually, I'm going to celebrate the 10-year anniversary next year because I still have a hard time with 2012 because 2013 is when it feels like it was more official. But 10 years ago, I launched Dirty Girls Consulting with my best friend and business partner, Shirley Ramos. So we got it going in 2012. We kind of did more of an official kickoff in 2013. And by 2014, 2015, I don't remember which year it was, maybe 2015, somewhere in that window, Shirley was full-time Dirty Girls Consulting. She left her day job, she left the corporate world, and she was full on in on this. And I was still in the corporate world, and she was telling me, you've got to come, you got to come do this full-time. There's plenty of work here for us to do. There's lots of women we can support. And she was having a blast doing it. At the end of 2016, she called me. We lived in 2 different states. We saw each other regularly because our jobs allowed us to travel. And so our work allowed us to be wherever we needed to be. We've been working remotely well before COVID. So we were allowed to travel. We spent time together. I was in Florida. She was in Denver. We traveled between the places frequently. And there were other locations like Vegas, and I think once we met in Philly, right? We met in other locations as well to have our Dirty Girls Summits and to do our planning and all of that. At the end of 2016, she called me from Denver and told me that she had been diagnosed with cancer. And she had both breast cancer and she had melanoma. The doctors had said, we're going to deal with the breast cancer first and then the melanoma. So, or I should say, they dealt with melanoma, and then they dealt with breast cancer, and then they went back to melanoma. That's kind of how that worked. So 2017 was really her year spent undergoing treatment for the breast cancer, and then at the end of 2017, we were then focused on the melanoma. So she dialed back her coaching. She never stopped, but she did dial back her coaching in order to support herself going through treatments. And in November 20th of 2018, Shirley passed away. Same day as my brother, 6 years later. So as you might imagine, I spent quite a bit of time wondering why the same day. Was this some sort of cosmic kind of kick in the head, or just a very odd coincidence? I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. What I do know is that when it comes to the month of November and the gratitude practice, it can be hard. And it's not that I am not grateful for my own health, for my parents' health, for my kids, for the fact that we have food to eat and a roof over our head, for the fact that I can travel to be here with them at this time. It's not that I don't have gratitude for that, but it doesn't mean that there isn't still guilt and sorrow and resentment for the fact that they're missing. Because the holiday time is that time of year, right, when we get together with friends and family that we don't see very often, when we make the extra effort and we make the point. And that's when their absence is felt the most. So there's a lot of raw emotions that happen even 10 years later and even 4 years later. And I don't want to underemphasize the fact that that in the time period that Shirley and I were best friends and business partners up until she died, I talked to her every single day. I talked to her more than I talked to my parents. I talked to her more than I talked to my kids, who, by the way, once they move out, do not call you nearly so much. More than the men I was dating. Shirley was the constant. I talked to her every damn day. So it was a huge gap in my life when she left. And I imagine, too, a lot about how my parents suffer, right? For 10 years now, knowing that their oldest child had passed away before them, which I think is heartrending for any parent. But there's this kind of place you get to where there's not so much to say anymore. The grief is quiet. And it doesn't mean that it's not there and it doesn't come, but it's quiet. It's quiet. It still comes in pockets and waves, in moments. But the feeling underneath that, the guilt, the sorrow, the anger, the resentment, while they lessen and while you manage it, they still crop up from time to time. So the feelings don't go away. And then when you see this common Facebook practice, right, of the daily gratitude practice, again, I am not knocking the gratitude practice. It serves a purpose. I think it serves an excellent purpose. But there are days when I look at that and go, please, just stop. Here are the pieces with the gratitude practice that I do have issue with, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, is it glosses over the negative emotions. So if you're doing enough of that gratitude practice where you're naming something every day and you're forcing yourself to be happy and grateful every day, it glosses over the fact that there is a very real emotion there that you might be better off just sitting with for a bit and processing through before getting on with your day. It can make you feel like those negative emotions are not valid or appropriate, when in fact they are both. How we manage them might make it inappropriate, right? But they are valid and they are appropriate to have the feelings. It gets repetitive after a while, right? Especially if you're doing that 30-day practice, boy, you are digging. And I'd rather look at it as this is a practice in how we raise awareness, not necessarily a practice now I have to be grateful for everything. That just feels like more pressure. When it doesn't address the negative emotions, and more to the point, it causes us to suppress the negative emotions, it actually builds that little volcano so that we have even more negative emotion. Because now we're irritated about the fact that we had to suppress it. We had to hide our feelings. We had to not express the sadness or not express the anger. And instead, it's just all bubbling up inside, and that part's not healthy. So what I want to talk about tonight is, how do we manage this? How do we manage this and still have a happy holiday full of joy? Because I do love the holiday season, even when it gets tinged with these moments of sadness and guilt, resentment and anger, all of that, right? How do we manage these feelings in a healthier way that will help us process them so it does become easier year after year, moment to moment? And it never goes away, but we have the tools to deal with it in a healthy way. So I have 3 strategies that I wanted to share with you that help us both process and move through moments that can be hard in the season where we're feeling the pressure of got to be grateful all the time. This is your responsibility, is to share joy. And I want to point out the added pressure for women this time of year. Aside from the fact that we still do most of the cooking and the cleaning, I've talked about that before, we have been raised to key into other people and how they're feeling. We have been raised to adjust our reactions and responses and activities to ensure that everyone else in the room is comfortable at the expense of our own comfort. This is just training we've had since childhood. What is everybody else feeling? What are they thinking? And how do I make them happy? How do I make them comfortable? How do I make sure that I don't do anything that causes any sort of discomfort or rupture in the status quo? When we are managing through challenging emotions, sometimes that can't be helped. And that's probably the hardest part of all of this. But the question then is, do you want the disruption to everybody's cheerful status quo to come because you're having a moment and you are dealing with it in a open and mature and respectful way? Or do you want the rupture to happen because you've repressed it for so long and now you're just angry and there's an outburst? Or you're sad and there's a meltdown? There's a difference. And there is a way that we can share and show the emotion, one, without bringing everybody down, because that's what we're afraid we'll be accused of, that we've ruined the party. That's not true. That's not true. Have you ever felt somebody genuinely connect with you on an emotional level and then turn around and tell you you were such a bummer, that you really let them down, that you really drug down their mood? No. No. Nobody who ever feels like they've truly emotionally connected with somebody, even if it's over something that's sad, even if it's over something that's traumatic, when that connection is real and genuine, there's not a lack of love and support there. There's connection. You've just built something. That's the opportunity with this, is to build something. So the first strategy though that I want you to pay attention to is probably one of the hardest ones, and that is you, tuning into you. When we are triggered in a stress mode, we feel it in our body first. Before our mind and our brain registers, this is anxiety, this is fear, this is anger, this is jealousy, this is sorrow. Before we register and name that, we feel it in our body. And for those of you who've been in the group for a while, if you remember last year, I did a whole series on the chakras and where we feel stress and where we feel energy according to the chakras and how we can manage through that. So I want you to pay attention to where you feel it in the body. And if you're watching the video and are feeling that stress, or know where that stress commonly comes up for you, it comes up in the throat, it comes up in the chest, it comes up in the stomach, let me know. Drop it in the chat, and I can send you the training that we did on the chakra that's related to where you feel it in the body, and the tools you can use to help put that back in balance. Because when we know where we feel it in our body, it tells us something about the message, right? If I feel it in my throat, oftentimes that's the signal of either I have something to say and I can't say it, right? I have something to say it, or I'm not being heard even if I'm talking, right? We feel constricted. We literally feel like we can't get the words out and we're not getting them out the right way. That's our throat chakra saying, hey, there's a challenge here. There's a trigger here. And there are things we can do. There are mantras, there are breathing exercises, there's literally movement and yoga poses we can do to help shake up that energy that takes anywhere from literally 10 seconds to 30 minutes. It's however long you want to take to reset yourself and come back into the present. Move the energy, shake the energy, use the energy. Identify it, acknowledge it for what it is, and then allow yourself to come back into the present moment. So the first step is, the first strategy is all about taking care of yourself. Where do you feel it in your body? If you have a common trigger and you know, it's my throat, it's my chest, it's my stomach, like where in your body do you feel it? I invite you to drop where in your body you feel it in the chat, and I'll reach out to you and tag the chakra training that's related to that. That gives you even more tools and tips on how to help release that stress. Because this is not just good. I mean, we're walking into a holiday weekend now, but the holidays are for another 6 weeks, right? So this is good. This is good for weeks to come, and honestly for the whole year beyond that. So one is tune into it. Take care of your body. Watch your sleep over the holidays. Watch what you're eating, how you're eating. And this is not diet time. Holidays, I'm not talking about diet time. I'm talking about making sure when you are eating, though, that you're nourishing yourself. I'm not saying don't eat the pie or the cake or the ice cream or whatever else people are bringing. Do not feel like you have to skimp on the mashed potatoes if that's not what you want to do. But do make sure that you are eating, that you have some sort of balance in your diet, because what we put in our body does impact our mood levels. What we put in our body does trigger certain hormones, and our hormones trigger both our weight gain and our moods. And if you find yourself in a situation, in a conversation, in a room where there is tension and there are triggers going on, if nothing else, walk out. Strategy one is take care of yourself first and tune into your body. And if that means you have to go for a 5-minute walk or a 20-minute walk and leave the environment that you're in, to get a clear head and reset yourself so that you do not engage in something that is going to be harmful or hurtful to you as well as potentially to others, then that's the priority. Now, the second strategy is communication. It's communicating what you need. This is the hardest of the three. I said that paying attention to yourself and your body is hard, and it is, but the hardest of the three is then communicating. How do I share that? What do I do with that? Right? When I'm in a room full of people and half of them are triggering me, right? What do I do? The choice we make in this moment, and it is a conscious choice you make, is it more important for the other to feel comfortable? Is it more important for the other to have their feelings spared than it is for me? To stand up for myself, to stand up for my boundaries, to draw a line. And you may decide that it is. You may decide it's not worth it in this moment. Let her have her say, or let her believe what she believes, and I'm going to step back from this. But I also want you to know that when we choose the boundaries that we set, and when we enforce them or don't enforce them, letting people step on you, letting people belittle you, denigrate you, make you feel badly about yourself, letting them do that does not make you the bigger person. There's a difference between setting a boundary that stops an attack and then you yourself going on the attack. I am not advocating going on the attack, although there are appropriate moments for that, but that's not this training. This training is keeping your boundary of, I do not deserve to be spoken to that way. I do not deserve to be attacked in this way. Therefore, here is my boundary. And you say it and you hold it. And holding it means we're either going to change the subject, we're going to stop the conversation right now in its tracks, and if we can't, I'm going to physically remove myself from this situation. And this does go back to taking care of yourself first, but this is also about how do we communicate that to other people, and how we do it is by holding boundaries. And I've done tons of boundaries training in the last couple of weeks, guys. It's in the group. If you need extra support around boundaries, drop the word boundaries in the chat and I will tag you to some of the recent training that gives you some of the tools and language around how do we hold these boundaries respectfully, how do we hold them with grace and compassion for ourselves as well as for other people. But that's key. That is key. The holidays are not the excuse for Aunt Edna to go on her tirade or for Uncle John to make his racist remarks. It's just not. It's not the excuse for bad behavior. And while we might acknowledge that it's going to happen, or that it's at high risk for happening, and we might even have leeway for what we allow, at the end of the day, I want you to know and to own that letting other people denigrate you in any way, it doesn't make you the bigger person by saying nothing, or by doing nothing, or by putting up with it. Everybody else already recognizes that bad behavior is happening. You setting the boundary for I will not be treated in this way is not bad behavior. That's showing respect for yourself and respect for other people in the room who, by the way, aren't stepping up and saying the thing that needs to be said. So I want you to think about who you need to be in that moment. Who do you want to be? Who do you want to show up as this holiday season? And that's the person. That's the person who came to the party. That's the person who hosted dinner. It's the person who went to the Secret Santa event with all the gremlins behind her. The third strategy. So first strategy is tune into yourself. Take care of self first. Where are you feeling the stress? Let's breathe through it. Let's move through it. Let's mantra through it. Whatever we need to do to shift that energy so that we can manage it and it doesn't overwhelm us. And then we're going to communicate. Here's the boundary. Here's what I will and will not tolerate in terms of my sense of peace. Third, keep an ungratitude journal. Ungratitude. Not a gratitude journal, an ungratitude journal. Now, this I say with caution. All right? This is a little bit of buyer beware. But here's the deal with the ungratitude journal. The ungratitude journal is your opportunity to free write. If you're not a journaler, that's fine. Grab a piece of paper. You can throw it away, burn it later. Doesn't matter. You can keep it. But it's a free write about what is going sideways. What is happening right now that's got you triggered? What's going to be happening in 2 days that perhaps is building up the anxiety early and it's happening now? But journal. I won't use that word because not everybody loves that word. Free write. Free write. Sit down, paper and pen. It is important to do paper and pen. I advocate that over typing. The connection between the brain when we do physical writing on paper is much stronger, and it helps us process. It's also slower. And the slowing down of what we're writing and what we're thinking about helps us actually process the negative emotions. Write it out. I have anxiety because Uncle John's coming to dinner in 2 days and he's racist and he's going to make some racist comment, and we have people from other ethnicities coming to dinner, and how fun is this going to be? So write it out. Write out what's causing you stress. I am resentful of the fact that Shirley died on me. I am angry that my brother had a 6-month window between his diagnosis and his death. I'm angry that they both died so young. Right? How do you feel? Write down how you feel about it. Write down, what does this mean to you? If you know what, there's a trigger. If there's a specific incident and a specific trigger, write it down. We want to get it all out on paper, because when we can sort it out, when we've taken the time to think through it and write it out, now we can deal with it. Now we can kind of look and go, okay, there are some of these things that I actually can't do a damn thing about. There are other things I can. So for example, maybe I don't sit racist Uncle John in the same end of the table with some of my more multicultural friends. Maybe I have a chat with Uncle John when he first comes in the door and says, hey, here's something I need. I need a favor from you today. In the holiday spirit, here's the gift I'm asking for. Right? You can start thinking of ways that you can mitigate, and maybe it doesn't save the day. Maybe everything's not perfect. That's okay. Life's not perfect. But it gives you a sense of control when you start to really, literally spell it out. It also gives us an opportunity to validate our feelings and to affirm the fact my feelings are real, my feelings are valid. There's nothing wrong with them. There's a reason I'm having these feelings right now. But I can validate and own and experience my feelings without them spilling over onto everyone else, when maybe everyone else doesn't deserve it. When maybe of everyone else in the room, there's actually only 2 or 3 of them that I trust to help me hold these feelings and work through them. So I can work through it and move through it in a way that allows me to hold on to it, so that I know after dinner, when it's just me and Mom, we can have a chat, right? After the big party, when it's just you and your sister or your cousin or whoever it is that can hold that space for you, you know you're going to get a chance to do that. Now, here's the caution. This is the buyer beware part. This is not an excuse to catalog all the things that are wrong in your life and blame everybody else. We can sink into this pool of sort of self-pity, which actually becomes very self-destructive, and that's not what this is for. This is for you to validate, to explore, to have an open forum to say what you're really feeling, and to release, to resolve, to take action. So what you want to do as you are working through the emotions is you want to start thinking through what are the forward-looking statements. What's the forward-looking mantra I can have? So maybe I don't have a solution for racist Uncle John. I don't have an Uncle John, by the way. This is just an example. But some of us do. I didn't say I didn't have a racist uncle. I just don't have an Uncle John. If, for example, there is no solution I can come up with for what to do with my uncle, then maybe the mantra that I have for myself that day is just breathe and let him be. Let him be. He is who he is. It is not my responsibility to correct Uncle John. It's actually not my responsibility to make sure my friends are not offended or don't deal with it in a graceful way. And in fact, if he does offend my friends and they speak up, that's for him to deal with. Maybe my mantra for the day is it will be what it will be, and my job is to be the best hostess I can be. I'm going to stay focused on making sure that the environment I am creating is as supportive as possible. What you people do in it is up to you. So having this free right to kind of vent through what's going on is the opportunity also to say, okay, here's what I can do and here's what I can't do. But it is not to become your cesspool of self-pity and blame and resentment that you then carry with you into the rest of the day. But an ungratitude journal can be a very effective way of helping us process and feel like we've gotten some of that emotion, some of those triggers out before they've created, right? Before they've created ripples in the day that don't necessarily need to be there. So, I realize this was maybe not the most uplifting holiday joyful topic for us to talk about just before the holiday weekend, but I do feel like it's a really important one for anybody who is dealing with high levels of stress and emotion this time of year, for whatever the reasons. For whatever the reasons. Not everybody has the roof over their head. Not everybody has enough money to buy a whole bunch of presents and go traveling and. It's stressful. I get that. It increases our anxiety. I feel that. From my own experience, there's just an awful lot of heavy emotion around November in particular. There's a lot of grief. There's a lot of sorrow. There's a lot of resentment. There's anger. There's guilt. We have to find healthier ways of processing and working through this so that we can also enjoy, we're still family. We still have things to look forward to and lives that we're building and memories that we're creating. A little bit of balance and boundaries there. All right, ladies, I hope you all have a really fantastic holiday weekend, regardless of where you are, who you're spending it with, what you're eating, and what you're doing. Have a fantastic rest of the week. I will be checking in. I am taking days off, but I also will be checking in. So as I mentioned earlier, if you're looking for some help processing in the moment and you can identify where in the body or which chakra it is you struggle with, drop that in the chat and I'm happy to tag you to that training so you have some extra tools to help you. If boundaries in particular are a struggle for you, drop the word boundary in the chat and I will share with you some of our trainings that give you some tools around boundaries. If you decide to keep an ungratitude journal, I would love to hear from you over the next few weeks how that works out and if that's helping you at all. In the meantime, it is time for us to go check into a holiday week, find our joy and gratitude, and allow ourselves to be human and to be real and to truly connect with the people around us who we love. Have a great week, ladies, and I will be talking to you soon.